Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Canned cocktails exploded over the last couple years. You can take them anywhere. I've spoken to quite a few canned cocktails makers. Today, let's welcome another one, Merican Mules and its co-founder, Dean Mahoney. Hey, Dean. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Julia. Thanks for having me.
I want to know, how come it took you guys, the beverage makers, this long to think of canned cocktails?
That's a good question. I would say tax is probably the single most important reason why it did take so long. So yeah, it's funny too, right? Prior to starting the company, I didn't even come from the beverage world. We just had this idea because, as you mentioned, it was kind of surprising that it didn't exist before. So with a tech background, kind of dived completely into something new and different, and made it much more of an entrepreneurial journey. So
then how did you start if this was a completely new area for you?
Yeah, well, back in 2015, we were out at a bar called the Bungalow in Santa Monica. We were my co-founders and I, and really hip, trendy, fun bar. And we saw all these copper mugs essentially be placed out on the bar. And I'm originally from New England, from Connecticut, as well as my co-founders. And so we just moved across the country, and we had never seen a Moscow Mule before, and they were becoming really popular again. And so we tried one and kind of fell in love with the drink and became mule connoisseurs, essentially going around Los Angeles to different bars, restaurants, and ordering different mules, and really just became passionate about the cocktail. And when we looked at just what was going on, the craft beer industry was really starting to explode. And you saw craft brewers use things like flowers and a lot of unique, high quality ingredients to make their beer really, really good. And it also commanded a much higher price. So we started to look at, the idea of putting a Moscow Mule in a can, with the big barrier being, it would be expensive, but the quality would be far superior because we'd use real spirits and make it really true to recipe, like the bartenders in Los Angeles. And that's essentially what we set out to do.
Yeah, Santa Monica, that's the place to be. To get inspirations. I mean, I gotta ask you, look, the cocktail industry, the beverage industry is huge, but let's say a few makers really own the space. You were fighting uphill.
Yeah, I think you could say that. I think a lot of the big guys out there that are hard liquor obviously hadn't done the canned cocktail thing. There's an interesting overlap in what we do, where we're actually like canning a true liquor product, which introduced a lot of complexity to figure out, what's the right way, what licenses do you need to be able to do that, and then you go through the whole sales network, essentially. Who distributes it? Is it beer distributors? Is it liquor distributors? Typically hard liquors are much higher alcohol by volume, right? So where do these canned cocktails actually fall on the spectrum of beer, wine, liquor? And so that caused a lot of confusion. I think it held some of the big guys back from looking into the space, as well as just the price. I think a lot of times seltzers were becoming really popular, obviously, and as they continue to peak every single year, because it's essentially a sugar brew, which is almost like a malt-based alternative, and you can keep the price down really low. So there was a lot quicker adoption, right, by some of the bigger players, the big beer companies and liquor companies.
I mean, I'm sure at one point you were a little worried. You're like, well, I don't want somebody else bigger to just look at what I'm doing and say, oh, what Dean is working on is really cool. Let's just copy that exactly. And they can maybe move faster. How did you move even faster than that so they wouldn't be able to copy you?
Yeah, it's honestly, I think in the alcohol industry, there's just so many steps in the process. It's just, there's so much regulation that it's really hard to hit a button. Even if you're a big guy, you're still reliant on government approvals and federal approvals on things. So cutting the line's not as easy. But we were just really motivated. We thought we had a really great idea. There's other canned cocktails out there, right? And back when we started, the space wasn't just wasn't really even a known commodity. And now finally 5 years later, we're starting to see consumers are starting to recognize it. And I think there's enough players in the space that people are starting to take it a lot more seriously. So it's like I say, it's building with one brick at a time. It started by, us driving around California, self-distributing and selling into our first liquor store, right? And then doing a sampling at that liquor store to let people try the product and get feedback and start to grow a local presence. And then, the next step became, grab that first major distributor that was interested. For us was in Massachusetts. So I flew back across the country and started building out a distribution strategy. And then we opened up, or continued to put a strategy in place to look at retailers and chains where you could actually buy the product and what made sense. So very methodical, just one step at a time. Sometimes focusing on supporting relationships and in one given area, and really like driving a lot of attention and brand awareness in that area might be important than just expanding to as many states as you can, as fast as you can, because you start to lose quality, right, at many levels.
Yeah. And lastly, I'm not so much of a mule drinker, but what do you think I would like out of everything you've made?
I think you would probably like the tropical style.
Okay.
You look like
that sounds, Yes,
you
I
look like
think so. Yeah.
Are you missing summer? Because if you're missing summer,
all the time, all the time.
I would probably take you for a tropical mule then, which is rum, ginger beer, and pineapple.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Send me some, and thank you for being here today, Dean.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Julia.
Yep. And thank you for watching. Follow, subscribe on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Have a great day.